winner of the Reality Award for Most Real.
Oh, this is the kind of painting you find hanging on the wall at an Applebee's.
Saccone.
Oh. Yeah, there's another new hobby since World War II, war brides.
Oh, do we have to read the whole movie?
I did less reading in college, Marv. Where are these hot rods you'd say we have?
Rambling rods, indeed.
Beretta, the early
The
years.
guy behind the wheel of that Boulder Street Lightning? That's me, Bullet Bill Bowers. My folks and I just moved to this new city, and it sure seemed to me like we picked out a town full of sleepwalkers.
Meow.
That included the fellas and girls my own age, too. I never saw such a collection of Sleepy Joes.
Vote for
And they
Sleepy
drove
Joe.
like rich old ladies and old-time electric heaps. Looked like I was gonna have to educate the high school on the subject of hot rods. How to take a jalopy and really make it move.
Yeah, make it move. I'm down with your jazz slang.
Why, in the burg I came from, I had the juiciest bug of any rodder in the goose greasers. That was
The-
our street
the
racing
what?
club. And
The
I had
driest
biggest
snake in the
collection of
duck
traffic
dribblers?
citations, too. All us greasers drove the cops crazy. And I could have started a private mental sanitarium for those I'd worked over.
I miss the hood buckle.
I hadn't met Walt Perry and his sister Janet yet. Walt was president of the Knights, the city auto sport club. His sister was secretary. I guess my roadster impressed him. Yeah, I really had a job putting some life into this town. Why these jokers even walk slow? I went into my act at lunchtime, trying to bring the word to a bunch of prime squares.
Monty, what's the prime square root of
Believe me,
69?
That was the coldest audience
Nice.
anybody ever played to.
This
I
guy's
got
never done
nothing.
improv in
Just
front of a
nothing.
cattleman
I
association,
didn't get
right?
it at all. Were these guys abnormal or something? Or had I joined up with a bunch of zombies?
Wait a
It was
minute,
gonna
there
be
are two
tough.
of them?
But I'd have to bear it.
It's too many.
I was stuck with him. This city was a slow burn.
This city's a slow burp? Oh.
No.
It was kind of lonesome that first day, and after school. But I knew a way to get him to notice me. It had
Other
always
than
worked
the
before
unibrow?
where I came from. Yeah, they knew I was around now, all right. You should have seen them scatter.
Bodies
I got a
everywhere.
lot
It
of
was a
attention.
real keen
Some of
bloodbath.
it not quite what I had in mind. Officer Jim Daniels came to school to give his regular safety talk. He took off
Jim
after me.
Daniels to the rescue! Jim Daniels to the rescue! Go, Jim Daniels, go!
First he told me I was driving like a wild man. I took that as a compliment. And then he asked if I was a member of the Knights. So I said no, I was a goose greaser and wanted to show him my card. But all he wanted to see was my driver's license.
The courtship of Eddie Munster.
So I was getting my first ticket in this city. Didn't impress me much.
So you're
Like
Brad
I said,
Pitt.
I held
That
a
don't
goose
impress
greaser
me
record.
much.
But this was a different kind of a ticket. Well, I had to go to court, all right, but that wasn't new. But this court was held right in the school.
The
And judge
People's
and jury
Court.
and the whole
Dun,
court
dun,
was
dun.
girls and fellas like myself. How about that? I didn't dig it at all.
Oh, look at him. He's so confused. He doesn't even know what he was doing. He's just a goose booster.
Officer Daniels was there. He was the police department advisor. The judge really socked it to me.
Then he
So I
shoot
didn't
it to
have go
someone
jail
else.
or pay another
No.
fine. I was sentenced to a special traffic school for unsafe and reckless drivers. I'd heard about these school courts all over the country, how they'd help cut down teenage accidents, but I'd never dreamed I'd end up in one. I had to find out from somebody just what was the matter with this town. Why were they so far behind the times?
Portrait of a forlorn goose greaser. I like his pants.
I guess Officer Daniels had figured out what I was thinking. He suggested that Walt and Janet Perry explain a
Brad
few
and
things
Janet
about their
Majors?
city and hot rodding the night's way.
Yo, why don't you show that boy how we do
They
things
gave
here
it
in
to me, both
Inglewood?
barrels. They weren't behind the times, I was. How about that? Me behind the times. So, I began learning about real hot rodding. The kind that developed after World War II. That's when thousands of high school and
Yeah,
college
slay,
kids and
queen.
servicemen were bitten by the speed bug. They began cutting down and souping up stock cars and racing them in the public streets.
Oh, what a
It
quaint
didn't
time
take
before
long to
school
give drivers
shootings.
under 25 a bad name. Why? Maybe because teenage
'Cause it's
accidents were killing or
teenage
maiming somebody
wasteland.
once every 2 minutes, causing more damage than all fires and twice as many casualties as we had in the whole Korean War. The police cracked down too and collected driver's licenses wholesale.
Collect them,
This
trade
thing
them,
was
race them.
played up in a national picture magazine.
Ooh, that's my favorite magazine, Hot National Pictures.
But like Walt explained, figures don't mean much, just reading them. You're a lot more impressed by what happens to you personally. Tom Hanks was Walt's best friend, and his hero,
What, would
actually.
you say that Tom Hanks
Tom
and
had been
Walt
in the Air
were
Force as a fighter
bosom
pilot.
buddies?
Now he was going to college. Tom had built up just about the slickest cut-down custom conversion in existence.
This story probably won't turn ugly, right? Right?
No, that'll hold
You
it.
see, Tom had a big advantage. His father, George Hanks, had a big auto repair business, and besides that, he manufactured and sold speed parts. Mr. Hanks had to admit that his son had the hottest motor in town. But Tom shouldn't have spent all his time on the motor. There are other parts to a car, too.
There are other erogenous zones?
Like those little gimmicks in the wheels, the brakes. Tom was breezing down the road, and he was catching up to the 1105, a pretty fast freight.
Run,
Then he
Forrest,
thought of a good test
run!
for his engine. If he could beat the fast freight to the crossing, he'd know his engine was perfect.
Is this the Green Mile? Oh, no, never mind.
Then the engine sputtered, missed, slowed down just a little. Tom wouldn't beat the train. He'd have to use his brakes. But he didn't have any, and it was too late to turn off.
Oh, right in the money pit.
I guess there is crying in
But
baseball.
Tom had spent all his time on the motor. A whole lot more impressive than figures.
Oh, but honored guests welcome by whom?
After the accident, Mr. Hanks told Officer Jim Daniels he wanted to do something, anything, to keep other boys from getting killed the way his son was.
He wanted
Well,
revenge.
Officer Daniels was ready. He'd been reading about a new kind of hot rod club with stiff, safe driving tests and which only admitted members who hadn't had a ticket for 6 months. They raced their cars, but only on special safe drag strips after complete safety inspections.
He's pretty jolly for a guy who just buried his son, right?
Right, I'd be devastated if Tom Hanks died.
It seems a little dark.
So that was how the Knights Hot Rod Club was organized. Mr. Hanks was its sponsor, and Jim Daniels agreed to be police department advisor.
Jim Daniels is the only
Hanks turned over
cop
a
not
garage to the
serving
club and gave them
no-knock
enough
warrants,
tools
I
and
guess.
equipment for a start. Every hot rodder in town wanted to join, but the safe driving test and no ticket requirement kept out quite a few at the start.
Damn, that is some fine Jane Hathaway right there.
Ooh, Jethro.
Then, while they were waiting for a drag strip, the Knights began getting their cars in shape to qualify. And to many proud owners' surprise, a lot of the cars failed the safety inspection. Those that failed were disqualified for racing, so the owners worked them over night and day until they did pass.
All right, so show me here where it says I'm not qualified. Oh, it's right here.
The inspection teams were getting good, So Officer Daniels decided to play a joke on them.
He just starts
See just
firing
how
his service
good they
revolver
were.
randomly at the
He brought
kids.
over a prowl car that was ready for overhaul. The mechanic had found 5 things wrong. Now Jim wondered whether the Knights could find them.
They had that car stripped in no time.
All the inspection teams joined in, teaming up on Jim's car.
Jim secretly wished they were teaming up on more than just the car.
Oh,
And they found the faults all right.
Yep, San Andreas, the Hayward, the San Jacinto, and of course the Newport Inglewood.
And then more faults.
The Guaymas, the Honey Lake, the New Madrid in Missouri,
And more faults.
Partida, the Pescadero, the Tomeo, yeah, the Cerro Piedrero.
When Jim got that report, he realized he'd been driving a death trap. He was lucky to have gotten to the garage alive. Yeah, the Knights had made a believer out of Jim.
And then he saw her face.
Now he's a believer.
Meantime, Mr. Hanks was collaring all his business friends and getting them to help sponsor a drag strip and safety program.
Well,
He
who
was a
how'd you
real
like to be my
salesman.
partner?
Almost before they knew it, they were signed up. Knights sponsors.
yeah, so they found some of my son over there,
Mr.
and a little
Hanks
bit
and Jim
more
Daniels
of him
went
over
looking for a site to
there,
develop a
and,
good,
well,
safe drag
you get
strip.
the idea.
They found an old airfield that looked like it would fill the bill.
Only problem is it's haunted by the spooky kook from outer space.
It was a good time. There were only 4 fatalities.
It didn't take long to get the strip ready. And when
Yeah,
the
they just had
Knights
to
staged
shave
their
down either
grand
side.
Opening and their first time trials and drag races, they were really on their way.
You
The
don't
club
have to.
began to impress people. The whole city, in fact. The Knights
Why
were
is she
proud
looking
of
at her
their
watch?
club,
Is
and
the
were out
car
to
late
build a
to
new
fix itself?
reputation for hot rodders, for courtesy and safe driving. More and more motorists in distress received club courtesy cards. They led a successful campaign for driver education and auto shop training in high school.
Oh yeah, the card
And
says
right
good
away,
for one
this
sensual
began paying off.
massage.
Oh, hey,
Just as
no
it has
expiration date on
everywhere.
that. Nice.
In a survey in one state, 800 untrained drivers had 5 times as many accidents as 800 who had received training in school. At the same time, the untrained drivers got 7 times as many traffic tickets.
Oh, thank God he's threading that guy's eyebrows.
Believe it or not, teenage drivers who are trained
No.
in school courses have a lot fewer accidents and get a whole lot less tickets than adult drivers. The driving
Got
teachers
2
say that the
turntables
students
and a
really go for it.
microphone.
Driving class is one they never miss.
Are you ready for the remix? Okay, here we go.
And why would they? Every now and then there are guest speakers, like the famous Ralph De Palma, who's considered the greatest racing driver in the past 50 years. He always tells the girls and fellas that nobody appreciates and respects careful driving.
Here he
more than a
demonstrates how he
professional racer.
milks his car. He's quite insane.
Well, sure, all that safety stuff was fine, I told him. Sounded good. But speed was my meat. A good fast mill and a tire-burning takeoff. The Knights go for speed too, Walt said. And then he asked if I'd like to bring my job out to the drag strip Sunday and try it out against some of their
Oh,
wagons.
may I?
This was what I'd been waiting for. Walt had himself a deal. But I never got near the strip. They wouldn't let me. They checked my car over and said it wasn't safe.
Turns out the
Took me a
windshield
month
wasn't
working after
attached.
school and on weekends
Whoops.
just to get ready to pass the safety test. So I was finally going to get my chance. While we were waiting for them to qualify my car, Walt showed me around, explaining how a properly run drag strip operates. There are classifications for all kinds of hot rods, but the main one is the ratio of weight to piston displacement. This determines the basic engine class. After a car is weighed and classified, it gets a complete safety inspection. I knew from experience how tough this is.
Can't get enough of these
Those
safety
inspectors
inspection
don't miss a thing.
montages, huh?
That's why drag strips have run for years without a serious accident. When it's been classified and inspected for safety, a car is ready to run. It gets an official number.
The same as the driver's IQ.
But drivers have to be in good standing too. If they're not of age, their parents have to okay them. Some of them show up a little too early. While the other cars are getting oil changes, he just gets changes.
This was a really essential scene. I'm glad they kept it in.
One of the cars, named the Bean
Oh,
Bandit,
right,
held a strip
Chihuahua.
record from a standing start to 142 miles an hour in a quarter of a mile. You'd be surprised at the number of girls who enter these drags. Not just driving either. They know what's under the hood because they put it there themselves.
Yep, tucked it right under the hood.
Yeah, the
Monty.
drag strip was like a circus or a miniature Indianapolis.
Mostly like
Hundreds
the
of people
freaks
were
in the
there for town
sideshow,
to
but
watch.
yeah, like a
A
circus.
real big professional deal.
Well, that's it. That's the end. We've
No,
learned a lot.
no, Monty,
Right,
it's,
From
no,
a
it's not
standing
over.
start, some of these draggers would beat a jet plane down that quarter-mile stretch.
We have this footage, we're using
There were just
it.
about as many ideas in rebuilt bodies and chassis as there were in high-efficiency motors. It may be a man's world, but you'd never know it on that drag strip. The girls didn't ask any special deal either. They went right out and ran against the men. Did fine, too. They won their share of places.
Ooh, I like her. She's a little loose in the back end there. Shake it.
George Hanks and Jim Daniels had a right to be proud. And they were. The nights in their drag strip were things the whole city could take pride in. No wonder they came out by the hundreds or even thousands to watch every drag meet.
What could be more fun than sitting on an abandoned airfield on a scorching hot day watching cars drive away from you really fast? It's the most fun, obviously.
Then Walt pointed out a man at the refreshment counter. His name was Phillips, a top designing engineer from Detroit. Did you know that a whole lot of the engine ideas in new cars were first tested and proved on drag strips and dry lakes? Things like dual exhaust, dual carburetors, and high compression heads.
Enough with your
Phillips
slang,
was there to
man.
watch for
Cheapers.
applications his company could use.
Here's a brochure.
You know, by the time they called my number, I'd become so interested I almost forgot what I was there for. This was my chance to show them. I didn't have any doubt about breaking the record. The only question I had was, by how much? But either that clock was broken or somebody was being funny, I thought. They had me clocked at a little over 70, just half the speed of the top car. I complained to Walt just who the comic was. Walt said nobody, the time was right. But if I wanted to try a drag race, I sure did. Now I could really show him, right on the drag strip with no phony clocks. Out of my way, starter. Yeah, I showed him all right. I had the coldest hot rod on the strip. I was left so far back I could have been driving Jack Benny's Maxwell. Obviously, I had a lot to
You
learn.
can't
from
grease
these
goose
squares.
this cold, I'm afraid.
Any one of these men could be
Well,
the
there
Zodiac.
was still the reliability
I don't see
run.
Ted Cruz Sr. on there.
You'd think by now I'd have had better sense than to go through with it. But I didn't. And I learned another lesson. I couldn't even finish. My radiator boiled over and I ran out of gas. And I
Does
was
it not
going
have
to
a
teach
gauge?
them about hot rods.
Were those metaphors? I don't know.
When that 1925 Star went by me, that did it. Right then, I made up my mind. If it was the last thing I ever did, I had to be one of the knights.
Nights in
So I
white
got the list of
satin.
membership requirements from Walt and the
Never
sister. She
reaching
was the
the
club
end.
secretary. And guess the first thing I had to do? I had to learn to drive. Imagine that after all the miles I'd driven. But after a couple of sessions in the dual control car, I found out there was a whole lot more to good, safe driving than knowing how to turn the wheel or which pedal is the gas.
Well, which pedal is it?
Actually, There was more I didn't know about driving than I did know. But that was just the first requirement. Next thing on the list was to go 6 months without a citation or even a warning. That was really tough at first.
Chips!
But I made it.
Bum, 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 bum.
It's always a classic bit. Love it.
Believe me, I was never so glad of anything in my life as I was to get hold of that little Knight's membership card.
Oh dear,
But I
she
knew
cut her
one
own
thing.
bangs.
Oh,
I was
honey.
a whole lot better and a safer driver than I was before I started working for it. Janet asked me to come outside. She said the Knights were holding a clinic and wanted me to join them.
But actually, it was an intervention. For me, can you believe it? I'd been drinking straight motor oil for weeks. I was real whacked out on
And
it.
that's when I found out how little I actually did know about souping up an engine. The Knights were holding a clinic, all right. On my car.
What a twist. It turns out he's an idiot.
I thought I'd revved up my motor pretty well. But now I learned about porting and relieving the block, cylinder bore, racing flywheels, custom camshafts, exhaust headers, dual exhaust, tolerances, new ignition, high compression heads, hemispherical combustion chambers, dual carbs, dual point distributors, dual intake. Well, I needed a mechanic's dictionary to even follow what
And
they
that's
were
not even a
talking about.
thing.
All those parts and the tools were going to cost money. So I got a job after school and Saturdays to pay for them.
Aw, just start an OnlyFans.
Some guys spend thousands of dollars on a good hot rod, plus thousands of hours of work. They won't even drive him in traffic. Some careless driver might smash into him and ruin a car that costs more than a Cadillac. While I was getting the money together, I read every book on mechanics I could get. I got a few ideas, too, about carburetors mostly.
Great.
I decided to rebuild my car for the reliability run instead of the drag race. This would give me a better chance to try my carburetor ideas. And you know something? My ideas paid off, too. It took me a few months, but I finally won a 3rd place for reliability.
Shoot for the bronze.
But I got a real surprise when they started giving out the trophies. How? Well, the city merchants had awarded a trip to the Memorial Day race at Indianapolis to the boy.
The booby
the club
prize.
voted most deserving. And guess who the Knights elected? Me, Bill Bowers, the ex-ticket champ. How about that? Then Mr. Phillips, you know, the Detroit engineer, came over and wanted to look at my carburetor.
But then he started taking pictures of me with my shirt off.
He asked if I'd be interested in a scholarship for their factory school to study mechanical engineering. They've given a lot of scholarships to fellas in hot rod clubs, and a lot of them became top mechanics and designers. Of course, I said yes. So I got the biggest kick of my life, seeing the 500-mile race.
Seriously,
They'd arranged
the
for
greatest
Ralph
thing in
DePaul
his
to show
life,
me around, too.
to watch cars drive in a circle for 3 hours.
He introduced me to racing stars like Manny Ayula and Eb Jenkins. And Mr. De Palma and Harry Hartz talked over old times. We looked over all the cars, too. Bob Estes and driver Don Freeland were wheeling their special out for a warm-up run. This is the toughest race of all, for cars and drivers. A speed trial and reliability run all at once.
The 24 hours at Le Mans exists, right?
Yeah, it existed at this time.
What a kick, meeting famous guys like Duke Neyland and Roger Ward. And they told me they all considered Ralph De Palma the greatest driver in Indianapolis history. And Wilbur Shaw, the president of the Indianapolis Speedway, agreed with him. He won the race 3 times himself.
12 names,
You think
none
the
of them
races
famous.
are fast, you should watch the pit crews work. Why, they can change a tire faster than a blowout can go flat. A driver just couldn't win the race without a good pit crew to work his car over during the pit stops.
Sex workers that flood Indianapolis also pretty good at working things over.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Then, on the morning of Memorial Day, the big race started. I think there were about 200,000 people watching.
But only
The biggest
6%
crowd
of them
for any
didn't have
sports event in the country.
comorbidities, so
And get this.
fake
Out of the
news.
33 cars, 9 of them were driven by ex-hot rodders, members of clubs like the Knights. The winner drove the 500 miles in less than 4 hours. That means an average of better than 125. Yeah, like I said, it was the biggest kick I ever had.
kicks,
I didn't
man.
realize I was actually sitting there, watching the biggest race in the world.
In the heat, in a suit.
Yeah, it's tough to believe now that jerk in the slop-up was me. Just a
But I
few
had the
months back,
squishiest frog in
before I
the
became a
ostrich
night
fluffers, or whatever the hell it was.
You see, the reckless kid in an old clunker like that one is not a hot rodder at all. He's a square in a shot rod. Real hot rodders in organized clubs and timing associations all over the country have taken what used to be a hazard and turned it into a real hobby.
Yeah, dragging for
And a
dimes is
genuine
what I used to do
benefit to their
for
communities.
money in college.
Not just through safe driving and driver education either. They've raised thousands of dollars for charity, conducted blood drives for the Red Cross.
Yeah, well, blood is the
Top
fuel of
mechanics and
capitalism.
designers for automobile manufacturers, as well as testing and proving ideas that have produced better, safer cars for everybody. So that's the real story of the cool hot rod. The one-time hazard that has become a brand new, safe, progressive American hobby.
Progressive, and just like Bernie Sanders rallies, these are very, very white.